Hey guys, how's it going? Ghosty Rich here today with Mika. And today you can see my toolbox is pulled out because we're adding a welding breaker. That'll be later in the video. Let's just jump right into this. I got some headers. These are American racing headers. What I ended up doing is I already have the first V-bands welded on, and I've gone ahead and ceramic coated them for better heating in the, or heating, cooling, whatever you want to call it, in the engine bay, because that little bit does help. I found that out with the Jeep Hemi project. So those are ready to go. I'm going to leave them wrapped up so that way it protects it for right now. As you can see, we've got the rest of the exhaust right here, and we're going to leave the factory valves in there. First thing we're going to want to do actually is to jack up the car. Now, as you know, I don't have a lift, so I'll be throwing this thing on jack stands. If you're going to do this, expect a good workout because it's one heck of a good one. First thing you're going to want to do, unlock your car. If yours is on a battery tender like mine is, unplug your battery tender. You don't want any power going through anything. And what we're going to do is pop the hood and pop the trunk. If you've worked on one of these beauties before, you know there's a little round spot right here where the jack puck goes. Just stick the puck in, rotate, make sure she's in there. And then you do the same to the front. Now, if you have a small enough jack, you can go ahead and start here. For me, I'm going to grab my motorcycle jack. Making sure that's on the jack puck. Slowly. Just like that, maybe a little more, and we should be able to get our jack underneath there, since that is not a low profile jack. I mean, kind of is, but kind of isn't. Good start. Now, put the next jack puck in the front, and we'll go ahead and put that on. Go ahead, once you get that jack puck on, start lifting. You'll see it lifts both sides of the car because how the car is made. We're going to get it up as high as we can because we want as much space as we can underneath there. Once you go up on that jack puck, just like so. Now I don't have it up that high this time, but before I had it pretty much max extension, put my biggest jack in here. And as you can see, I put it on our main cross member right here. Did the same right here. Now I'm going to lower that jack. It'll sit on both. It'll scare you the first time. If you've never jacked your car up before, which I'm sure you have to do oil changes, but you would jack it up on that puck. You'd put your first jack stand in on this side and the whole car will actually balance on this one jack stand. Then you just bring your jack over here and it's already way up there and you're just kind of leveling it out, putting the jack stand in and lowering it onto it. And then we'll do the exact same with the rear. Only the rear, if you really wanted to, you could do the rear on one big center post by putting it in the middle of the frame. But I'll leave it up to you. 2 is more sturdy, 1 can be done. So what I did is I started the jack there, then I went over there and used my motorcycle jack to jack up that side a little bit, then over here, and I slowly kept it balanced going back and forth until I had enough room to put these on there. So literally, little there, little there, little there, little there, and now let's go ahead and we can slowly lower on both sides and put them right onto these jack stands. And again, if you really wanted to, I suggest the 2, but you can go ahead and put one center, one right here. I'm not gonna make you watch me take out every one of these bolts, so let's go ahead. You're gonna pull out literally every one of these bolts except for right here. You'll see there are 2 with a keyhole. So only loosen these ones. I would actually do these ones first, loosen them, and that way, if they come all the way out, you can just put them a couple threads, 4 threads back in, because these are gonna hold this plate from smacking in the face on the way down. So, like I said, just loosen these 2 with the keyholes and then pull out the rest. If you have a 1/2 inch, makes this a breeze. On the bigger bolt, I found an 18 fit best. Do the same to the other side. After you're done, give this thing a quick wiggle and then slide it like so, and then it's gonna pop off the heads. I'm not gonna do it with a camera in my hand because I'm under the car, but just lift, it'll slide out to the keyholes and take it out of the way. Now it's time to go ahead and shoot all this with penetrating fluid. So go ahead, shake some up, shoot it all over the threads, all over here on those 2, and up front on these bolts right here, and then on the ones that are up there on the posts. I'll get my light later, but right above this cat right here, there's going to be 4 bolts that go up onto the cast manifold. Make sure you shoot all 4 of those too with some penetration fluid. So 4 on each side, these 2 on each side, and then the 2 circle clamps in the back. Well, that's soaking. Go ahead and do this. Just reach over, pop this off, do the same to the other side. See those T27s, I believe they are right there? We're gonna remove those and take that cover off too. That one right there. And there's another one, which probably isn't gonna show up on the video, which is fine, but it's right here. Go ahead and pull that one as well. Try and put absolutely anything you can over your fenders. I always just usually put a garbage bag on here, and if you want some painter's tape, and don't wear anything with zippers or anything like that. Anyways, go ahead, compress, lift up. That just comes, and like I said, you just compress right here. Go ahead, we've got those bolts out, wiggle this loose, and just, well, work it out of here. I'm gonna need both hands to work this out. Now that we've gone ahead and done that, we've exposed all our plug wires, go ahead and work these puppies down and slide them out. So again, here to here, and then you don't really have to worry, they're all the same plug in this case. Just pull them all out, and then we can also inspect our plugs. Now there's 2 things you can do from this point. You can remove your spark plugs, which some people do, and other people don't remove their spark plugs because they use it as a place for the header to rest on when they go to put this all back in. So I'll leave it up to you. If you want to, go ahead and remove your spark plugs. I'd at least pull one out and check it out, because if you're going this deep, which you're gonna see on that side later, you're definitely gonna wanna do that. Depending on your finger strength, I found it easiest to try and get around the metal over here and right here, and all you do is you pull back and it literally comes out. Just careful you don't cut yourself on that heat shield. It's nice and sharp. Depending if you have the Z06 and your coils are dropped, I would highly suggest you undo your coils and remove them out of the way. These ones, they sit just as high and they seem pretty protected by the valve cover. I'm probably gonna leave them on. If I have to, I'll remove them later. Anyways, go ahead, penetration fluid, shoot it on all your manifold bolts, so that way this side's ready. Now it's the next side where we're gonna have to remove the fuse box, where we're going to have to go ahead and disconnect the battery. So I think that's what we're gonna do now, because yeah, you don't want to be doing anything like that without disconnecting the battery. As you can see, that one's over there. We can go ahead, just reach down here, pop this up, undo the -10, and then tuck it into the side, or at least put something separating it so there's no chance of it touching the battery. So once again, just loosen that 10 mil and then slide it up and move it off to the side. As you can see, that's all you do. Slip that up and off after you loosen that 10 mil. From there, we can now go underneath for a second, and let's go see how that penetration fluid did on those bolts. Let's go loosen them up. As you can see, we just have some 15s. Go ahead, throw this on, and well, you're gonna have to crank these ones. For me, I already kind of loosened them up, I'm not gonna lie. I just wanted to try it out, and yeah, no, they came pretty easy. If they don't, you might have to slip a breaker bar on there. But I found the 15-inch on a long-handled ratchet was perfect. The one on this side, you have to kind of squeeze real tight into that heat shield. But if you do that, you can get it. So loosen these off as much as you can. Maybe leave one in by a couple threads, and then we'll go down to the far end and we'll release those clamps and see if we can wiggle some magic. Next set of 15s, go ahead and note the orientation so you know how the skid's gonna fit on. And go ahead and just loosen. And actually, believe it or not, that's actually kind of crazy. I actually didn't start that one beforehand. So it just shows you, make sure when you're putting this stuff together, if you want, you can use anti-seize. In my case, I'm not reusing any of this. I am V-banding everything. So to each their own, do as you wish. And as you can see, that's now free. Do the same to the other side. See that bolt on the exhaust hanger? I'm gonna go up and onto it right there. Take it out, it's a 1/2 inch, and take out the other one right beside it. We can deal with that mount afterwards, but at least if we loosen this all out, we can possibly pop out this whole section of the exhaust real quick, so that way the X pipe's out of the way and makes everything a little easier. As you can see, once you get those bolts out, it hangs down and past. And if it's caught up, just push it a little forward towards the rear of the car, and then it'll drop out of the 2 manifold cat pieces. After you've done that, now we're just gonna love tap, even right here with a rubber mallet so it pops out on both sides. After we do that, this should be free from here and the X pipe should be free. That surprisingly got some weight to it. So the trick for these back ones, hit the corner right here with a rubber mallet while you wiggle it up and down with your foot. Well, I was lying down, so I was using my foot to move those up and down and then tapping it with that, and it just slipped right out. Again, it's really been quite an easy process for me. But again, this car only has 35,000 kilometers on it, so it's not really seen that much weather. So other than that, next thing to do, hop underneath. We can take a look at those manifold bolts, because the manifold's two pieces. There's that cast piece, there's another piece that comes down. We can also see if we can reach those O2s before we start disconnecting anything, but there's a chance we might have to loosen it and then unplug those O2s on the way out. Next thing to do, 18 again. Don't have to pull that one all the way out. Just like that. Now that that's out of the way, we can see how we're gonna maneuver to get those 4 bolts out. First one, pretty easy, just drops right out. Second one, crack it loose, pop your socket out of the way, do the rest with a box wrench, or take it out of the way with your hand. Depends how rusted it is. For me, it wasn't that rusted, so got the first one out, like I said, just with a socket and an extension, and the second one I cracked loose, and then just had enough room to pop my ratchet out, and then now just loosening off the bolt by finger, and then we'll go the last 2 over here. If you're looking right above the cat right here, you'll see them. What you do is you see that little gray tab, slide it back as though it's a safety. After you feel it fully click out like that, compress and pull the connector out. And again, I only popped this one down so you could see it. After you get those bolts out, you'll notice that you could, if you wanted to, take out a couple of the posts that are on where the bolts were, and you should be able to do it. I'm not having any luck with going those posts out, so what I'm going to do instead is actually go loosen off the manifold up top, so that way both of them will be able to wiggle free, and I should be able to just technically slide the manifold up a bit, and this should come out. What I would suggest you do though, just to make sure, is if you do this, just put one of the bolts back in a little bit, or the nuts, just a tiny bit, so that way it's not going to just fall out after you pull the manifold bolts out. Got that one out pretty easy. Got that one started pretty easy. Starting to get these out. Just be careful of anything while you're doing it. And also, if you have a flexi ratchet, it's going to be so much easier because you can bend the ratchet handle just a little bit up to keep it from hitting everything. Seriously, if you don't have one, before you start this project, go at least pick up a 1/2 inch flexi head. It's going to help you so much in this project. Take off the heat shield, 10 mil here, 10 mil right there. When you do that, this whole thing will pop out for us, and we should be able to get that last bolt on the corner. If you look up from the bottom, let's see if I can show you here. There's almost no way to get it lighting there, but there's one more, actually you can sort of see it right there. There's one more 10 mil. You get it from down here just above the flange. It literally happened how I thought it would happen. All that happened was I loosened the 4 bolts up top, got a little bit of play and was able to pop it out. Right now the manifold is just sitting on top of those spark plugs. I'm gonna lift it up, MacGyver it a little bit, and get her out of there. So this is your header. Slowly work it down. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. You'll see that there is just tons of wiring harnesses around. Make sure you aren't digging into any of them too bad. And just like I said, slowly work it down, and then it slides down and out like that. Once you get her out, take a second and celebrate. You've got half of it done. That is the more fun half, especially if you have a dry sump like me, because what we're going to end up having to do is remove the dry sump lines. So you're probably going to just want to do an oil change while you're doing this. But before we get to that, let's go ahead. We're going to disconnect our fuse box, get that all disconnected, moved out of the way. And then just like we did on this side, we have to pull off this panel, so we can expose it and remove the spark plug wires. There's a look at burnt bronze for you. Looks pretty cool. I open it up, there's the V-band. Reason why is so that way I can see our O2, because you want to put the O2 in first. And try and avoid your dog from licking it. Isn't that right, Mika? All right, next thing you need, O2 bung. Put this on here. Go ahead, put your piece on, your breaker bar, and crack these loose. Isn't that right? Okay, fine. Okay. So the one with the black connector goes in there, and then if you want to, on your secondary, you can go ahead and put these in. You really don't need to unless you want to. I'm just going to do it because why not? Then I'll get a reading from all of them. But all you do is you go ahead and slap that inside, and make sure you put some Never Sees Tin Man on there. The reason why we call it Tin Man is because if you get it on your skin, you're never going to get it off, or on anything black. So don't put it on anything around there, and just a light amount of anti-seize. Just a little dab like that. You can even wipe a little bit more off the tip just so that way it doesn't go down. Like I said, just screw it in there, and there's no real torque spec. Just get this thing nice and tight. Figured I'd show ya. Literally this onto here, and then support it with your arm, and just like that, like one hand crank, you'll feel it cinch down, and she'll just lock up nicely. Don't go two-hand Tom on this. Don't go He-Man. You'll be fine. Reach down here, press the bottom. You'll see it compresses in and pulls out. Now that that's out of the way, ta-da, we need to release these. Push the tab away from the handle. Do the same on the other side. Handle starts coming up. Do the same to this side. Handle and release. Hey, look at that. To access this lug, you just have to move this, press down. It's a balancing act, especially when you have a camera in your hand. Push down, and as you're pushing down, there, just like that. Haha. Go ahead, take this bolt off. Put both the wires off to the side, so that way we can lift this up and out. When doing this, press down on the box, and then lift up on each piece. Get the two loose, and then put them off to the side. Take this bolt lightly threaded on. Now, you won't lose it. Now that the legs are up and off, slowly separate these while lifting, and you'll notice your box should start lifting up. So out, and then lifting. There. And she just comes up and out like that. Put this somewhere safe so your fuse box is fine. For these, all you have to do is compress this in the back and slide back. And this slides out like so. So again, just compress the tab in the back and slide back. See if I can do it easier right here. There. See, that one came out really easy. Do the same to that one. Might need a flat blade. Again, press the rounded tab in and slide back. This little tab, just maybe we can squeeze it to release. Yeah, just like that. That way this line is free. And the reason why is now that that's free, go ahead, take out this 10 mil, this 10 mil, and looks like there's one more right down here. You might have to quickly just lift this out of here. Just like that. So pull out that 10 mil as well. Let's say those three for now. Just like the other side, pop out the T27s so that way we can access our plug wires. You could actually leave this valve cover piece on right here. I'll leave this up to you. If you decide to take this one off, you have to just reach in here, and there's actually a barbed clip that's in here, and chances are you're gonna end up breaking one of them. If you want to, you can go ahead and leave the coils in and then just pull these wires off the coils, leave that in there. All right, so we got all those plug wires out. These ones are a little bit more troublesome, I found. So I ended up using some really long needle nose style pliers right there, so that way I could grab the metal sheathing and pull on them a little bit to get them out. Make sure you pull on by the metal, not by the rubber wire, otherwise you're going to damage the wire. Now that those are out, go ahead and crack all these loose. And if you want, you could even start to get them out. I wouldn't completely loosen them out yet, not until we go down below and do exactly what we did before. Crack those 4 major bolts down there first, reach around, unplug your 202 sensors, and then come back up here and finish it off. Just went ahead, drained the oil. This one had the most, that one had the least. Well, probably because I pulled that one first, but pulled that one first, pulled that one second. Time to drop the 13, pull the line, let it drain into here, and then pull the next line, let it drain into here. This part takes probably the longest of sitting around. Literally, you just have to pull here and press in the bow, and when you do that, they come out. When they do, expect fluid, obviously. There's going to be some fluid coming out, so try and catch as much as you can, clean up the rest, and then now you should have better access to the bolts up here. Once you get a few of those bolts loosened, right there, right above it, you'll find the connectors. You will see a button, like a little button that you release that opens up the heat shield so you can access them. See that? It's like a button for a shirt. Just pop it out, and then after you do that, you'll have access and take them off just like you did the other ones. So the one in the back only has a little flap. You just open the flap like this and you'll see the little white piece. It's going to be impossible for me to show you. But literally, if you find the little flap, open it up, compress the clip and slide it out. I moved this one out of the way so I could try and get you a better angle. If you want to actually drop this, all you do is you flex that little black tab away from the hook, and then you can slide the Molex out. But as you can see, our O2 sensors are now free. And I'm gonna see if we have any room to wiggle this out. If not, this is loose and it's time to go up top and release the 5 manifold bolts. After you loosen the heat shield again, you can bend this back. I would get that far one out first and that back corner one out first. If you get those the farthest in that one, these 3 are easy. So I ended up pulling the heat shield out through the top, so loosened off those 3 bolts. It was troublesome. Trust me, it is. There's no easy way to do it. I was able to wiggle it and really squeeze up. Heck, if you have a pair of tin snips, cut the heat shield on that header in 2. You're not reusing it, right? Get the heat shield out. After that's out of the way, it's so easy to maneuver down. Just get that heat shield out of the way. All right, let's start preparing the new headers. As you can see, we're going to be using this gasket, Remflex 2089. Those are going to go in with the new headers over there. The other thing I picked up, because I got this exhaust from a person who ended up going with something different, which is fine. That's why I said, well, let's modify it a bit. So that's why you see these V-bands getting welded on. I'm going to put some V-bands on the other end, which are going to connect to the main exhaust. And then in the center, we might either A, just weld those up, or maybe we'll V-band in the center too. We don't know yet. I'll take a look and I'll go from there. Nothing to add, a couple more. And the other thing that we've got here is O2 extensions, so that way they'll reach on the pipe. I mean, if you're not running cats, having the downstream is kind of pointless, but at the same time, it's just one more reading. So as you can see, we got those 2 there. We've got Mika right there, and we've got some ARP header bolts. And those are 1341102. The reason why I got these ones instead of the actual ones is because it's the exact same bolt, literally the exact same bolts, except for this comes with 2 spares and they were in stock. The other ones were like a 4-month back order. So I said, you know what, I'll pay the extra couple bucks, get that pack and make it work. So just keep in mind, there is one that's actually made for the LT engine. I only went with this one because it was in stock, and oh well, I get a couple extra bolts. All right, I was going to show you how and angles and stuff to put this in, but it literally came back in just as easy the other one came out. This side is super easy. Like literally just be careful around the starter and you're fine. I didn't even have to pop the starter out. One thing I did decide to do is pop the 3 heat shield bolts out on the starter, and I'll put those back in with a little wrench afterwards. But again, that's one thing you can do. Pop out the 3 10 mils on the heat shield on the starter, and then it gives you a little bit more room. But look at that. I guess the next thing to do is pop out a gasket and get these bolts started. Go ahead, just pre-line these up, make sure everything's gonna line up, which it does. Perfect. And so now we know that's this side's gasket. I'm gonna put this so it's safe up here. Now go ahead and take 5 bolts and put a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads, just like we did with the exhaust bungs there. We made sure that we put anti-seize. In this term, we're gonna go and use blue Loctite. As you can see, I got the washers preloaded. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hand tighten all of these with a little bit of blue Loctite and make sure everything is sitting perfect before we start to cinch them up. If you can actually get a torque wrench in there on some of these bolts, the torque spec on a brand new head is 20 foot-pounds. On a used head, it is 17 foot-pounds. I managed to get my inch-pounds torque wrench in there, and I torqued them all up to 204 inch-pounds, which is 17 foot-pounds. And it squished that gasket quite nicely. Whatever you do, don't follow what it says on that package. I think it says 20 to 25 foot-pounds. Even if you go and take a look online, they're gonna tell you maximum 20, and that's on a brand new head. On a used head, you should be doing 17. So we got some good squish going on. That's your first one in. Looks great. I'm not gonna put everything back in yet. I wanna get both sides put in. And again, if you've dropped any bolts or anything, make sure you go searching and find them all. So that way you know those bolts aren't gonna get caught up in anything. I'm gonna get everything from that side, bring it over here. Take your dry sump lines, stick them back in if you want. You can replace the gasket there if you're worried about them leaking. And then go from there and put these bolts, if you got an inch-pound torque wrench again, 192, and if you have foot-pounds, those are 16. Starter heat shield bolts are back in as well. Top one can be a little tricky. What I did is I stuffed a piece of saran wrap in my box wrench with the bolt, and it kept nice and tight in there, and I was able to kind of fish it up in there and then tighten it nice and slowly. As long as you get it in by one thread, then you can start to do it by your fingers, and then yeah, Bob's your uncle. That's it. So we've got those, we got the feeder lines. We'll do all the structural stuff afterwards. I'm not giving you a torque spec for the heat shield because I don't know, and I'm not gonna look it up because it really won't make a difference. Let's get the other side in. I think this one I'm just gonna pop the spark plugs out, because the only other way to do it is to actually pop the steering U-joint off right there. You pull that bolt out. You have to lock your steering wheel so it won't turn, and then you should be able to wiggle that free, and you might be able to bend that up enough and out of the way so that way you can get that header around. But from looking at this, I think it is just gonna end up being easier just to rip out these spark plugs, and it should be able to go around it really easy. So time to get a 5/8 spark plug socket, rip out the plugs, and we'll go from there. How you know a spark plug socket? Usually it has this hex on the back, and you'll see a rubber cushion if you look inside the plug. Slide it in and unscrew. After you crack them all loose with the socket, then you know that you've at least got them. Go ahead, put your socket around it, and you can take them out by hand. Once you get those plugs out of the way, the header literally lifts right up into place. If you have a second set of hands, you're gonna be super thankful. I was able to juggle this with one set of hands by grabbing the center here, holding the gasket with my fingers, and then with my one free hand, I screwed in the first bolt and made sure I didn't cross thread again. I did it by hand, so that way I knew it was gonna go in buttery smooth. Now that I got the first bolt in, gonna go down here, do the middle one, and then try and screw in that last one, get the last two in, and we'll torque them back down to 17 foot-pounds. Coming in right beside the hood, you can actually use your hand to reach around over here or over here, whatever you want to do, and then you can pull up on the header and use your other hand to put the screw in if you're doing this with only one person. Again, if you have two people, you're going to save your hands and time. Let's show you exactly what I'm talking about. Like I said, I come around through here. This hand holds the end of the header. This hand holds the screw. I'm lifting with that hand and using it to counterbalance the leverage of the other bolt. And like I said, always with my hand, not a tool. That way I can feel it grabbing the threads, because you don't want to strip the aluminum head. And there we go, I just bit. And we'll get 3 turns in time for the ratchet. Or box wrench for right now. I guarantee you that back bolt is going to teach you new vocabulary words you have never even thought you would say. Once you get it though, be happy. And like I said, do the first 4 so there's way less chance of you stripping that one. Once you get it though, celebrate. Because now you can cinch them all up. Now, I meant to say this on the other side, I'll say it here too. You want to leave these a tad bit loose for if you're not going to do what I'm doing, which is V-banding the whole thing, because you want to actually put this whole thing together and then cinch the manifold down, and then you cinch all these bolts down once the exhaust is in place. With me, since I'm doing V-bands, it doesn't really matter. I'd rather cinch everything down and then weld the V-bands accordingly. So what I'm going to do is do the last 17 foot-pound pass, and I'm actually going to put the whole engine bay back together, because underneath the car is all custom, which I will show you. But we might leave that to another video. I'll see how long this one goes. But for now, what I want to do is cinch these all up, put the covers on, and get the engine bay all looking pretty again. If you're looking for a torque pattern, start in the center, do that to 17 or 204 inch-pounds, then the 2 ones away from the center, and then the last 2 away from those bolts. Pretty easy. Work from your center, work your way out. After you've done that, and you've got it there, pat yourself on the back, it's time to start assembling. I think I'm going to quickly assemble this side first, put the spark plugs back in. On all the white shafts on your spark plugs, you can go ahead and add some dielectric grease if you'd like, just on the white shaft part. Now, some people are going to probably say, well, Rich, you didn't mention anti-seize on the spark plugs. If you actually read up on a lot of places, they tell you not to use it on the aluminum heads. Now, there are some companies that actually make aluminum head anti-seize. If you want to go ahead and do that, you can, but we're going to go to such a small torque spec that you really don't want to have anything that's going to hinder that torque spec. If I were you, on these ones, you can do 11 foot-pounds, which is like 132 inch-pounds. When you do that, I'm sure you'll see it's literally nothing. So that's why it's important to use a torque wrench when doing these spark plugs, because the last thing you want to do is strip out the aluminum heads. At least it's not a Hemi, right? I mean, Hemi I have on the Jeep is 16 spark plugs. There's only 8 on here. A little cheaper and a little easier. Anyways, from here, we can go ahead and add our plug wires again. If you have a Z06, and let's say you're doing this, you got this big supercharger on top, go ahead and put your coils back on. Don't worry about torque spec. Add a little bit of blue Loctite and cinch these up. That's about it. Anyways, I would add the titanium boot collars that go down, because you're going to have a lot of heat coming out, and it's really good to add the titanium sleeves on the wires just to keep them safe from all that heat. I should be a little bit better with the ceramic coating on mine, but still I will recommend it. Cool thing for you. Slip this out. Go ahead, wipe that off. Add your own. Do that. And what'll happen is, as it slides in, it'll add it, just in case you're having problems getting it on or whatever, and you're worried about not having enough. Just do that. Then you can slide this back on. Pretty easy. Take your plug, sink it down, make sure the spring goes in, and click. It's audible. And then just come up here, white aiming towards you. That one, make sure it sinks right up. You'll see there's kind of a line where it used to be. Make sure it just sinks up to there. And then, see how close it sits to the header? Like, it's not touching, but it's still pretty close. And that's one of those reasons why, before you, let's say you got those boots, you'd slide it off the coil, slide the titanium boot on, and clip it back on. They're really cheap too. I think you can get them for like 30 bucks off of Amazon. So, I mean, I'm probably going to end up getting some too. It's really good for keeping the heat away. Next, T27, put those two covers on, no torque spec. If you want to, you could add some blue Loctite. I'm not going to because it's literally plastic holders. You're not gonna have to ever worry about them backing. Well, we can see that this is all good. Again, this piece, pretty easy. All you do is slip it back on like that and sink it on there and press this back down. Once you press it in, goes in. If you want to, you could even lubricate the O-ring a little bit, and that way it'll sink in a little easier. This side can do the exact same. Pop that on. We'll start doing our fuse box. When you put this in, fold these two clips up so they're all the way up here. Work the bottom end first. Work this around. Make sure these are up top and these are up top. So like I said, I work it in like this. It goes underneath the 3 clips, work it around this plastic line, and then last but not least, work it around your AC line. So that way it can clip back in. Now that these are sitting here, you can either A, quickly pop these screws in, which is what you should do, and then we'll quickly slide these back in. No torque spec needed again. Just go ahead and line those up and slide forward. Line them up. Slide forward. Same, same, same. Perfect. Now, bring your fuse box in. We can do that. Actually, you know what? Let's just do this while it's right here. Yeah. This can just sit right there again. Okay. Now that that's good, like I said, go get your fuse box. We'll clip that in. Line this back up here. Move these out of the way. And slide it over. Just get it semi-lined up. Put these so they're just about locked in, but not quite. Or you could even, let's try it locked in. Put these off to the side. Put this here, line it up so you know all these plugs are going to sink right on. Again, watching these two, and then start to move this. There. Okay. Locked. Locked. I'm actually going to unlock this one though, so that way I can have better access. Might have to go quickly grab the other, but I want that handle up here so we can tie that last bolt in. Another fun fact, I don't have one with me, but if you had one, you could put a spring washer on there and then it'll definitely not back up. But you can see when I'm doing this, see how those 2 terminals are moving? That's when you know you're tight enough. You do not want to put any more pressure on it than that, because if you do, you'll crack the terminal off and then you need a new fuse box. Wouldn't that suck? Press that till it locks in, press this until it locks in, and there we go. Now, let's go ahead and get these last ones plugged in. This one works onto here. That's still plugged in. And our last one, which has the broken barb, which is fine. Just slip it in and sink it in. There you go. Well, that's done. This is done. These now look like that. Pull this off. Double check. Make sure everything is back to normal here. Clicked in. This is never disconnected. Looking for anything. Maybe you disconnected this one. Make sure you pop it back in. No, we're all good. You know what the next part is? We gotta go ahead and put oil back in this thing. From this point, go ahead and put about 9.5 quarts in there. And that way you can start up your vehicle, let it warm up, and top up accordingly. But remember, what you do is you put the oil in, make sure it's all all right on that dipstick, about 9.5 quarts. And then from there, start it. You have to wait for it to warm up. And then after it's warmed up, then you can go ahead and do the rest of the fun. But you have to wait for it to warm up, turn it off. I think it's let it cool for, 5 to 10 minutes. And then you check your oil. Take a look at that. Take a second and admire all your hard work. Isn't that right, Mika? Have a friend? Want to shake my paw? No? Just want to lick me to death? Okay. Next thing you need to do, go put your battery on and start it. And again, this is only if you've completed your exhaust. I'm probably going to still start it because I want to hear what it's going to sound like with just straight headers, but you're definitely going to need to check engine light. From this point, you'd want to take that hanger and go bolt that back in underneath. Put that at 16 foot-pounds. This plate, when you go to bolt it back on, put this to 20 foot-pounds. All those little bolts. And then on the big, you know those two big bolts that we pulled out? Make sure you put those two big bolts to 74 foot-pounds. I would go ahead and with these two bolts do the exact same like you're going to do to those two massive bolts. Go ahead and crank those down to about 74 foot-pounds as well. After you've done that, you should be good. Also, all the studs and stuff, you can do those around the manifold, same as that, like around 18 foot-pounds if you wanted to. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, again, I'm going to be doing a separate video where we finish fabricating up the exhaust. So if you're interested in seeing us work out the V-bands and stuff, I will post the next video when it's available in the description. If not, check my channel. Thanks again for watching. Press a like if this helped you out and subscribe for more.